live on the YouTube. Amina, please let me know when
You're
we
live.
are up. Thank you so much. Hi, YouTube. Welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favors Show on SiriusXM's Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. So last night I was at this event in Urban View. This is the event I was telling you guys about that the Working Families Party put together. And I was at an event speaking as a panelist on reparations, and it was a dope experience. Shout out to the Working Families Party. Going to get them back on these airwaves because they're amazing. And at the end of the conversation, because I kind of did my thing. Like I went in, I was talking about the history, and y'all know how I do. How I do in YouTube, that's how I do whenever I'm giving a speech. That's how I do whenever I'm on a panel. That same energy that I give y'all, I'm the same person everywhere I go. And shout out, by the way, to the folks in Arizona who I'm going to be seeing this weekend. Looking forward to that speaking engagement. It's going to be kind of fun. But last night I'm at the panel, and we're getting to the end of it, and a white gentleman in the audience stands up and says, "Hey, this is an all-black panel. What advice do you have for white people?" And I still had the mic in my hand. It was one of those pass the mic situations, and so I got to talking as I do. And I was like, first of all, I believe in the righteous whiteous, which again is a phrase that I learned from the amazing Dr. Feminista Jones. Shout out to her. She's super dope. I've known that sister for years and love her to pieces. And she coined this term called the righteous whiteous. And that is a term that essentially speaks to the fact that there are a lot of white people, more than I think a lot of us realize. There are a lot of white people, not as many as there need to be, just as a qualifier. But there are a lot of white people who basically identify more with the abolitionists than the slavers. There are a lot of white people who identify with the John Browns more than the Bedford Forrest and the other people who created like the Ku Klux Klan. And I was encouraging this white gentleman to tap into that culture. And I reminded him about this book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, written by Dr. Joy DeGruy, that really looks at the epigenetic, multi-generational transfer of trauma that we have experienced as people of African descent vis-a-vis colonization and enslavement. And in Joy DeGru's theorem, or in Joy DeGru's hypothesis, the post-traumatic slave syndrome is able to still be a part of our lived experience because the trauma of racism never ended. Like you had slavery, which didn't end, but it morphed into the prison industrial complex, where slavery is still now allowable, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. And I encouraged him to, I was like, somebody in your community needs to look at post-traumatic slave master syndrome, because y'all have a sickness. Like whiteness culture is a real sickness, and it causes you to be the only culture on the planet who can't get along with nobody. You all have a culture that causes you to think that you can live in opposition to the very climate that we all need to live, and you are okay with that because you can monetize it. I was like, y'all got a sickness. That shit is fucked up. Like you really got to work that out because it's dangerous. And and then afterwards, one of my elders was like, "You really went in on that white man." Because I even went back to the Romans, child. I was like, ever since the Romans came and took y'all and separated you from your fairies and your experiences of your pagan religions in the forest where you were connected with nature, y'all have been a menace, and you got to figure that out. So in addition to all the other stuff you need to do, work on that. And I was a little hard on him, I guess, in retrospect. But one of the things I didn't get to tell him was that whiteness culture and people who are trying to heal from that, one of the things you absolutely need to be doing right now is studying the civil rights movement. And the reason you need to be studying the civil rights movement, and I'm going to broaden this out because it's not just white people who are trying to be the righteous whiteous who need to study the civil rights movement. It's also us, because we've forgotten a lot of recipes. But it's important because when you don't know the principles of nonviolent resistance and you think you're just like going to go into protest and be okay, you are in for a rude awakening. And I'd like to remind people that everything that white Americans have watched your government and your military do to black people, and you did not stop that thing from happening, you created an energetic that basically is going to allow that thing to redound back to you. Now, let's talk about why this matters, because when we're thinking about policing in this country, we know for us it's always been politicized and militarized, and now the militarization of policing is making its way into white communities. You all recall, we've talked extensively about what happened in Chicago when those Black Hawk helicopters came after Donald Trump issued that executive order that basically said he wanted the military and the National Guard to use American cities, urban communities, which means black communities, as training grounds, right? And when we saw that happening in Chicago, it made sense logically, because it's a racist ass country, that was happening in a building that was occupied by black people and migrants. Like that makes sense because that's how it happens. But we also can look to what happened in New York City when ICE came in, and then white Americans decided to usher them out off of Canal Street. But then we also saw the aftermath. Like yesterday, there was a warning that went out at the university that my organization is based at, and it was a warning because everyone had got wind that ICE was on campus. Now, it wasn't ICE on campus. It was NYPD dressed in their non-traditional. It was in some tactical gear. It kind of looked very ICE-ish. NYPD, why are you doing that? Don't do that. But the students were freaked out. The community was freaked out. And like our senior leadership had to send out a notice. Listen, ICE is not here. If they were here, the policies and procedures they'd have to follow. But We know what it looks like when black communities are under attack. I don't know if we know what it looks like when white communities are facing similar things. I want you all to take a listen to this clip. Amina, this is the Chicago homeowner who's talking on MSNBC. And this is something that happened in the confines of his private home dwelling. And that matters because one thing white people in this country really value is the privacy and their homes. And their homes are their castles. Well, what happens when the government is using a militarized police force to violate your rights and privacy in your household the same way that you was okay with them doing when we was out there in the streets protesting so we didn't get shot dead for having a bag of Skittles. Take a listen to this video clip. Amina, I am about to, hold on, I want to pull this back so everyone can see the video. YouTube, I'm sharing the video. You should see it. Let's play the clip now.
No, there were no warrants shown. This was a really surprising and jarring and frightening attack. The gates were locked. The federal immigration agents jumped over the gates and onto the property. The workers ran into the house. My tenant was the one who was home at the time. She is a young 20-year-old woman. She let the workers come into the back stairwell. The workers came into my unit. You can see there in the images the amount of blood on the floor. I spent most of the day cleaning up that blood. Surprising that this could happen. And I'm just appalled that in our country, federal agents can jump onto private property, jump onto a balcony of a private property, create this kind of chaos.
You're appalled? You're appalled? Like, where have you been, dude? They do that shit to us all the time. Like, and they ain't stopped doing. They started doing that when we was in villages on the continent of Africa. They kept it going throughout the enslavement of black people. They kept it going throughout the entirety of the post-enslavement era. Does the name Breonna Taylor mean anything to you, friend? Does any of the names of black people who's the song Massey mean anything to you? We have always been susceptible to having the privacy, the sanctity of our privacy violated, and white Americans were largely okay with that. Here's why that matters. Because they are now coming for you. According to a report in The Guardian, we have some extensive reporting that looks at one of the ways in which this government is now doing exactly that, turning the perfecting of its militarized policing onto white Americans. In an article entitled, Pentagon Orders States National Guards to Form Quick Reaction Forces for Crowd Control, Pentagon Memo detailing plan to train over 20,000 National Guard members across the United States to carry out Trump's order on subduing civil arrests. You know that no king situation y'all was in? You know the fact that black people was like, we ain't gonna be out there with y'all. It ain't safe. The reason we knew it wasn't safe is because we been knew all the things that I'm about to tell you. The U.S. military has ordered National Guards of all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and United States territories to form quick reaction forces that are trained in riot control, which includes the uses of batons, body shields, tasers, pepper spray. And all of this is according to an internal Pentagon directive that was reviewed by The Guardian. I got a text message yesterday from a young woman in, I believe it was, I don't even know what city she was in, what state she was in. She is running for office. She's running for office. She's a candidate, and she has now been indicted along with, Kat Abu, hold on, I'm going to mess up her name. Her name is Kat Abu Ghazala, and she's running for Congress in Illinois. And after the militarized police forces came into Illinois, she was one of the many people who resisted. They slammed her. We saw a video of her, a video footage of it. I don't think I shared it on these airways, but it was shared widely via social media. She's now facing indictment. The same sort of indictment that LaMonica McIver, the congressional representative, is facing, because they said that LaMonica McIver, when she was down at Delaney Hall and doing her congressional oversight duties to make sure that they were not disappearing people into what was basically a black site of potential torture because nobody knew what was happening in there. They said that she used her forearms to assault an officer. And I'm like, how do you, your forearm is the space between your shoulder and your elbow. And I'm like, did she do a shoulder shimmy? Was she shaking the titties in their face? Like, I don't understand what it is you're talking about, that she used her forearms to assault an officer when she was being roughed up, tussled up, and tangled up by ICE. And now she is facing 15 years. 15, she's in her freshman term of being a member of Congress. But the military had signed in a memo on October the 8th, which was signed by Major General Ronald Burkett, who is the director of operations, basically is setting, quote, threshold for the size of the quick reaction forces to be trained in each state. Most states are going to be required to train train 500 National Guards members for a total of 23,500 troops nationwide. Now, we know a significant portion of them troops is going to be whole-ass white nationalists. We know that because that's what is happening right now. They got the tattoos to the extent that we can see them. We know that many of them have been outed as members of the January 6th crew. We know they are some white nationalists, but they're also something a bit more. I want you all to take a listen to this clip. This is Aaron Parnas talking about the types of people that ICE is now having enrolled in its service provision. These are the types of people that are also going to be collaborating with the National Guards troops that are going to be trained for riot control. So when you hear riot control, just think everything I was doing at the No Kings protest. Imagine what happens when you all get the same treatment that you are apparently perfectly willing to accept when we were protesting for Freddie Gray, protesting for Mike Brown, protesting for Eric Garner. Y'all didn't mind when the troops and the tanks was rolling in on our black asses. Well, guess what, Susan? They're coming for you. Take a listen to this video clip that's going to talk not just about the fact that these are ICE agents who are coming, but the types of people who ICE is now accepting into their agency. Just take a listen to this.
We have some stunning news right now that's not really surprising, but ICE is putting people in its training program without actually vetting them. And therefore,
Shocker.
You have people with lengthy criminal backgrounds in their training program. NBC News is now reporting that people charged with domestic violence, people charged with strong arm robbery, battery from domestic violence, and more, literally were recruits in an ICE training academy in Brunswick, Georgia. Some haven't even submitted their fingerprints for testing. Others haven't completed their background checks. ICE policy requires them to undergo basic vetting before going into these training programs. And now you have potential ICE agents, recruits, being trained who have rap sheets that include strong arm robbery and domestic violence battery. This stunning reporting from NBC News needs to be spread everywhere because then you have these people go on the streets potentially. And it's all because Trump is trying to reach 15,000 or 10,000 ICE agents quickly.
Yeah. Is it stunning, though? It ain't stunning if you've been paying attention. You ain't been paying attention. We're black. We don't have the ability to not pay attention. So, yeah, they're not sending their best. They're sending their rapists, their murderers, their criminals, their domestic violence abusers, their wannabe terrorists, their failures, their crash outs, the boys who peaked in middle school. That's who they're sending to police your communities. Now, the authority that they're looking to cite as support for why they have the ability to do this is that executive order that Donald Trump signed when he deployed the National Guard to Washington, D.C. This is the same order that, according to The Guardian and to our memories, required the Secretary of Defense, now the Secretary of War, whatever the hell he wants to call himself, to create a, quote, standing National Guard quick reaction force available for rapid nationwide deployment in quelling civil disturbances. What are the civil disturbances that were getting disrupted in Washington, D.C.? Wasn't like people was out doing like massive protesting. Oh, right. I remember that dude, Big Balls, got his ass handed to him in a carjacking, which we still don't believe. We believe that as much as we believe that that man grew his ear back after a high-powered ballistic bullet blew it away. Remember that? We believe that Big Balls got his ass beat as much as we believe you can grow back ear cartilage. Wait a minute. Did Evander Holyfield's ear ever grow back? Wasn't he the one that Mike Tyson bit his ear off, or the tip of the ear? And did his ear ever grow back? Because if his ear grew back, then maybe we could see ear cartilage growing back. I don't think it grew back. Anyway, moving on. We have to remember that what happened in D.C. was they flooded D.C. with the National Guards, the DHS, the HSI, the FBI, the CIA. Maybe the CIA wasn't there. It's one and the same. The FBI, all the guards, the ATF, the DEA, they swarmed D.C. We have shown videos of this. We have talked about this. And then what began happening? Massive increase in low-level petty crime type of arrests. Arrests where typically a judge would have had some sort of discretion. Be like, this is some bullshit. This ain't even a real thing. You can go on. Was there a smell of cannabis in the air? Did we see a puff come from your mouth? You arrested. Like, these are things that they were taking things that were decriminalized and people were getting arrested for it. But it didn't stop there, because remember how they also took federal prosecutors and transferred them from focusing on federal cases to focusing on these low-level cases with instructions to do what? From the drunken the woman, what is that woman? She always acting drunk. And maybe she is. I don't know if she actually is, but she always act like she's drunk. Jeanine Pirro. Remember when Jeanine Pirro gave the prosecutors instructions, federal prosecutors who are now doing low-level community-based crime, she instructed the prosecutors to charge as aggressively as they could. So even if you plead out, you are pleading out from a set of charges that are so extensive, so overcharged that even your plea deal is going to suck. Why would they do that? Because it allows for the incarceration of masses of more people. And once you're incarcerated, you can be a slave. That is part of America. USA, USA. And so when that happened, it set a model. And that model is now being spread all across the country. Now, according to a number of advocates, there's a lot of concern about this because they say that this order basically represents an attempt by the president to normalize a militarized police force. Remember when we told y'all that that was going to happen? Remember when we told y'all that this was basically going to nationalize stop and frisk, but everybody was going to get it? Now, here's why this really matters. Because some of you seem to believe that you have the complexion for the protection. And frankly, under normal circumstances, you do. That was, however, before the Office of Remigration was opened up in these United States. Now, of course, I'm breezing through this because we only have a few minutes left before we have to go to commercial break. Trust me, the rest of this is covered in way more detail with a lot more clips and content in the podcast that will be out later this afternoon. But what we should remember about the Office of Remigration, and remigration, again, is a European concept that basically says, we want a white manistan, and we don't care how your non-white asses got here, you gots to go. And remigration has three parts, and this is really important because this actually came up in the reparations hearing that took place in Brooklyn, where I serve as a commissioner on that New York State Reparations Commission. And there were some people in the audience who love to watch my videos to pick it apart and try to find things that they can then use as like a part of their testimony to be like, and Lurie Daniel Favors sucks because she blah, 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 blah. And one of the people who testified, he basically got up and says, and Lurie Daniel Favors, commissioner who seems to act as though Black Americans need to fight for immigrants because they say we can get deported just like her Jamaican family can. And I was like, first of all, that's not what I said. I said that was false. He was like, we got the receipts. Baby, I got many videos on this topic. I'm not suggesting that Black Americans should fight for migrants, because they should be worried about the possibility that Black people could be deported. What I'm saying is you're going to get sent out of the country. You ain't got to worry about the deportation component. You will be sent out of the country because this Office of Remigration, which Donald Trump has opened and staffed and funded as a part of his administration, has three components to it. All remigration efforts do. The first is to close the border, make sure that nobody else brown can come in. The second is to get rid of all of the brown people who are already here. And this is important because what was mentioned in that brother's commentary in his attack or his attempt to attack me with my own words was a fundamental misunderstanding of the permanency of Black citizenship. Black citizenship is only a function of the 14th Amendment. Only a function of the 14th Amendment, which can always be reinterpreted by this Supreme Court. And what that means is when they reinterpret the 14th Amendment, because they're already doing so. Remember how the 14th Amendment was established to help protect Black people who had been formerly enslaved from the harms of white people because white people who were passing the 14th Amendment into law knew that they white cousins was racist as fuck? Well, remember how the 14th Amendment was specifically designed for Black people? Guess what? The 14th Amendment has now been reinterpreted to say that white people can be protected from racism. Baby, we just a step or two away before they say your Black citizenship don't mean a goddamn thing. And so what I was saying was, let me make it plain, is that phase 2 of remigration means that all of us who are here now, who they don't think are sufficiently white manistan enough, will be kicked out of the country. They don't care where you go. They don't have to have a place to deport you. You won't be able to stay here. You ain't got to take my word for it. Y'all's president just said it. And I'm saying it, y'all's president, because a lot of y'all who are upset about the reparations happening in New York State right now also were a part of the confusion and misinformation and disinformation campaigns that encourage people not to vote for Kamala Harris. So thanks for the reality that we have now. Not that person in particular, but the movement which that person often speaks as a part of. Now, the reason that matters is because phase 3 of remigration, and this is where we get back to the whites. Phase 3 of remigration says that if you are a part of the genetic acceptable class, you are white enough to be considered a part of the class, if you are not ideologically in alignment with the creation of a white manistan, if you are considered a citizen who is white, but you're a righteous, they want your asses gone too. And this is really important. And when you consider what's happening right now in Tennessee, there is a case where a Tennessee sheriff right now has been jailing this white man. He's a white man. He's a progressive activist. And he posted a meme, a Trump meme about a school shooting. I don't know what the meme was. I'm just seeing some of the reports about this morning. I'm going to be investigating this a little bit further, and then I will share it with you once I have additional details. But what you need to know is they have jailed this man because they did not like the meme he posted. Let that shit make its way to the Supreme Court. As somebody in Twitter, the SPW_NOLA says, watch this make it to the Supreme Court. They will end free speech. So righteous, you need to be particularly aware as to what's happening, because up until now, you have been largely protected. And I know y'all want to keep protesting, as you should. But the rest of us, we stay in the fuck home. Because these reactionary forces that are being trained as far away as Guam, they are basically going to revitalize the sorts of forces that were used in the 1970s. Military experts, according to the report, have said that the Trump administration's moves, quote, harken back to an earlier era when National Guard's troops were frequently deployed to quell protests and disturbances, such as the 1970 Kent State University shooting, in which 4 unarmed college students were killed by the Ohio National Guard. Your country has been taken over by terrorists, white nationalist terrorists, and you're going to have to figure some things out. And again, I spend way more time going over this and sharing more information and details in the podcast. I encourage you all to take a listen to that later on this afternoon. But what we got to be crystal clear about is, for us, and I'm talking to us. Everybody else is listening, yes, but I'm talking to us right now. Baby, stock up on whatever food, groceries, vegetables you can. Get in community. There's a phenomenal story that was shared by this wonderful content creator by the name of Colorful Story, and she was asking her grandmother in this video, how did her grandmother make it through Jim Crow and the Depression? And her grandmother told her, well, I've been doing the same thing since Jim Crow. I've been doing that same, I never stopped. She goes to church, and her church every month, they cook for everybody. Black church, obviously. They cook for everybody in the church. And by the time that cooking session is done, everybody in the church is able to stock their freezer with food that they will be able to use to sustain them. And she said that every month they come together, they pray for each other in addition to the church services that they attend, and they basically have baked in mutual aid into their communal understanding of what the body of Christ is supposed to be doing. Her grandmother is a Black Christian woman, and so that makes obvious sense to the rest of us. So the community functions that we have, activate them now. The mutual aid functions that are naturally organic to us because we are a communal people, activate them now. You might not be in need, but guess what? After tomorrow, it's going to be a whole lot of hungry people, because they're acting like the Democrats had put forward a bill. This is for Tim, our caller, who called and said that the Democrats should do something and they should just agree to do what the Republicans want and have passed a clean resolution. The Democrats introduced in the Senate a piece of legislation that would have allowed for the shutdown to continue, but would have allowed for SNAP benefits to be paid. And you know what the Republicans did? Every single one of them evil ass sons of bitches said no. They said no. So here we are, America. This is your country. And you get to own this. And they're coming for you. They want you in Handmaid's Tale reality. Now, we done already been there. So we gonna have the capacity to navigate these things in ways that you could not even imagine. But as I said yesterday, when the demons among your people show you who they are, you probably want to believe them. So these weaponized forces are also obviously going to be aiming their gunfire at us, which means we have no reason to be outside in these protests. White Americans, you're going to have to study the civil rights movement. We were having trainings in churches where people were learning what it was like to take a punch, learning what it was like to get spat on, learning what it was like to have to deal with all sorts of elements being poured over them and abuse that they had to take, because in order for them to be successfully able to resist, they could not fight back. White people, you got some training to do. You got some studying to do. We done already been here. We left a playbook for you to follow. And we need to make sure that we are up to date on our own playbook chapters, because a lot of us have forgotten some of those recipes as well. But continue to protest. Continue to do what it is that you got to do. You need to do it. You should do it. This is your fault, because whether you voted for this or you didn't prevent your people from voting for it, you own this. And God bless you, because you're going to have a time trying to figure out what to do without the 400 years of education that we have been forcibly given as a result of what you and your ancestors have done and continue to profit from.